Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swami Tapaharini. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. My humble pranams to revered Swami Vivekanandaji Maharaj, Swami Shantatmananji Maharaj, Swami Atmagyananji Maharaj, seated on the dais here, and my heartfelt regards and best wishes to Dr. S. V. Ishwaranji, Dr. Makarand Paranjpeji, Rajiv Malhotraji, seated on the dais. My regards to all the Matajis assembled here from Sharda Mata, and all of you, my dear devotees and friends. This is extremely an important event that we have gathered here for. We are all commemorating Vivekananda's epoch-making speech which he delivered at Chicago, and the ideas which he sent forth from that platform, even after 125 years, it is reverberating throughout all the corners of the globe, bringing about new light and enlightenment in the lives of the people everywhere. Just now, as Swami Shantatmananji had already introduced, that Nivedita had written a beautiful introduction to the complete works of Swami Vivekananda, where she makes a very striking evaluation, I would say one of the best evaluations that we have about what Swamiji gave to the world. She says that before the Parliament of Religions, when Swamiji began to speak, he was speaking about the religious ideas of the Hindus. But when he finished, Hinduism itself was created. This is a very important statement which she makes there. What did she mean when she said that Hinduism was created? Does it mean that Hinduism didn't exist before Swami Vivekananda delivered his speech at the Parliament of Religions? Hinduism, which is in its true form known as the Vaidika Sanatana Dharma, the very term Sanatana Dharma means that which is eternal, which has been eternally existing and will exist. How can it be created at a certain point of time? So Nivedita meant that what actually Hinduism or Vedic Sanatana Dharma was needing was, it needed an organizing and consolidation of its own ideas and an authoritative presentation to the world. That was precisely what Swami Vivekananda accomplished at Chicago, where he, for the first time in the modern history, presented Hinduism in its all-comprehensive form and articulated the most scientific and rational ideas of the Sanatana Dharma and placed it before the world community. This was the great accomplishment of this greatest teacher of spirituality in the modern times, that was Swami Vivekananda. Now, when we talk about universality of the Vedas, we need to ask one question. What is that thing which makes something universal? You see, when we talk about different belief systems, religions of the world as it is existing today, or religions of the world as it is being practiced today, they are essentially belief systems. And by belief, we should understand that what does belief mean? Beliefs are merely truth claims. They are statements and propositions which are claimed to be true, of which we have no proof whether they are true or false. They are unverified claims. So a group of people belonging to a certain region, subscribing to a certain set of beliefs, maybe a certain set of dogmas and creeds, which are not verified, in such situation we find that the different belief systems, they stand at loggerheads with each other. This is precisely the present day situation as we find all over the world, where religions presented as a set of dogmas and creeds to be believed in, with no basis in verification, they become the cause of tremendous communal tension and mutual hatred, which has ridden this entire world for the last several millenniums. We all know the history of the world. Contrary to this, what is that thing which makes something universal? We all know that science is universal. The science which is taught in the classrooms of America and the science which is taught in the classrooms of Africa or somewhere in the East, they are not different. They are not at loggerheads with each other. Why? Because it is rational and it stands the test of verification and repeated verification, which is one of the basic principles of science. Repeatability. A truth which can be repeatedly verified is one of the basic pillars of science, and that is what makes science universal. Now the question is that do we have a rationally acceptable, a scientifically verifiable paradigm of life and existence? If we ask this question, do we have a rationally acceptable paradigm of life, existence, and reality? The answer to that question is, that is what precisely we find presented in the Vedic system of thought. A paradigm of life and existence which is rational, which is scientifically verifiable, and that is what makes the Sanatana Dharma universal. It is not in clash with any system of thought. It is something which can be subscribed to by a person belonging to any religion, anywhere, any point of time, because the basic bedrock of this great system of thought is verification of what it claims. It is not a belief system. It is not a set of dogmas or creeds to be subscribed to. It is something it welcomes every human being anywhere at any point of time, past, present, or future, to come and verify for himself or herself what the Vedas are claiming. This is what actually makes Vedas universal, the scientific temper. Now, what are the basic pillars, the most important points that we find in the Vedas, to sum up, which actually makes this thought system scientific and therefore universal? We can sum up the whole Vedic thought system into 5 or 6 points. You see what Vedas have to tell us. In a most simplified manner, it says that at the core of this creation is divinity. This creation has emerged from divinity. It is being sustained by and in divinity, and this creation is going to go back into the divinity. This is point number 1. If at the core of this creation there is divinity, the second point is, as a corollary, then at the core of everything there is divinity. At the core of each human being there is divinity. at the core of each living creature, there is divinity. Now, point number 3. This divinity is not a matter of belief. This divinity is a matter which can be verified and experienced by anybody at any point of time. Point number 4. If this divinity can be experienced, the 4th point is that the main purpose of human life, the main purpose of life at the human stage is to come in direct contact through an immediate experience with this ultimate reality, which is throbbing in our own bosom here, close to our own hearts. And if this is the case, if the very goal of human life is to experience this reality, then the next point is, 5th point is, this reality can be experienced not in one way, it can be experienced in any number of ways. It can be approached by any number of paths. In that case, there is one more corollary to this point, is that this divinity is both with names and forms, as well as without names and forms. Now, if you just look into these 6 points which I have enumerated here, you will see the scientific temper which actually marks the thought system of the Vedas, which makes it scientific and verifiable by the entire human race at any point of time and anywhere. Now, any human being who comes in touch with this ultimate reality through direct experience, he can be, or she can be, he or she is known to be the great Rishi. I have been asked to talk about the universality of the Vedas and the ideal of Rishihood. Now, in the Vedic times, the very goal of human life was to attain to this state of Rishihood by every human being, every man and every woman. That is the ideal which the Vedas place before the entire world. And if you just see, in that we can see the closeness of the Vedic ideas to even the most modern evolutionary biology. The evolutionary biology, if you just go by the central principle of evolutionary biology, which talks about the evolution of life from a single cell organism. From there, the journey starts, and after millions of years, evolution comes to the human stage. A single cell organism evolves to become the human being after millions of years of the journey of evolution. And evolutionary biology, and the famous biologist of the 20th century, Julian Huxley, states that evolution at this human stage is not going to be physical, but it is going to be psychosocial. And he stops there. The idea of evolution is very old and well known to the Vedic system of thought and the Yoga Shastras, where this very point is stated, how there is evolution which is taking place. But Vedanta and Yoga doesn't stop this evolution at the psychosocial plane. It takes evolution one step further and states that this psychosocial evolution at the human stage has to be taken to the next stage of spiritual evolution. That is the attainment of the Rishihood, where the man and woman goes beyond the psychosocial plane of morality and ethics and comes face to face with that ultimate reality, which is known by any number of names. No matter what name we give to it, that is the one reality which needs to be experienced and which transforms the human beings into a great Rishi. Now see the beauty of this Vedic system of thought. It does not simply present to us a theory. The great Rishis were very practical human beings. Theories don't work. We need to have practical plans and which can, literally speaking, actualize what is being told. So the Vedas, in that we find a wonderful scheme of life planned and chalked out, so that every man, every woman, by adopting to this plan, he or she succeeds in slowly, in a graded and a gradual manner to move towards the attainment of this great Rishihood. What was that plan? In the Vedas we find that the Rishis, they divided the human life into 4 stages. We all know it's a well-known principle. You must have heard about this several times. So what are these 4 stages? The first stage is the stage of the studenthood, when the boy or a girl goes to the student, which is known as Brahmacharya Ashrama. After the boy and girl, they grow up to become teens and youngsters, they are free to enter into a marital bond and enter into the next stage of Grihastha-ashrama. And in the Grihastha-ashrama, they are free to undergo the usual experiences of a marital life. And after having gone through all those experiences, they reach the next stage of Vanaprastha-ashrama, where they dedicate themselves into a more contemplative life. And finally comes the last ashrama, which is known as Sannyasa-ashrama, where the man and woman stands alone, completely dedicated to the pursuit of this great experience which transforms the man and woman into rishis. Now, if you just look at this great plan, you will see that the foundation of this plan is that the basis of all the 4 stages is spirituality. You know, what is the secret of this great plan? Is that Grihastha-ashrama based on Adhyatma is the roadway to the attainment of the state of Rishihood. Grihastha-ashrama, or the householder's life, the life of a married man and a married woman, but based on spiritual principles. Grihastha-ashrama based on Adhyatma is the roadway to the attainment of the state of Rishihood. But this was the wonderful plan which the Vedic rishis had chalked up. A plan by which men and women individually and the society collectively would be moving towards that great attainment of the state of Rishihood. Vivekananda very beautifully states that from the day Sri Ramakrishna was born, the Satya Yuga has started. Again, we are coming to a beautiful concept which we find in the Vedas. According to the Vedas, the progression of history of the human race takes place in cycles. And each cycle is divided into 4 different states. The progression of history, according to the modern historians, is straight. No, it's not linear. In the Vedic system of thought, everything is cyclic, nothing is linear. This is another big scientific principle which literally enamors all the modern thinkers and even the scientists, that the Vedic rishis could have such wonderful concept which is so scientific and rational. So the Vedas say that the human progression, the history, it doesn't go in straight line, it goes in cycles, and every cycle is found to be existing in 4 different states. The first stage is the state of Satya Yuga, where it is stated that every man, every woman is a rishi. It is a state of a civilization, a society in its peak, where every person, every man, every woman is enlightened. Every baby is born with wisdom. This is the description of Satya Yuga. And from there, the degeneration sets in. And gradually we find that the next stage, the Treta Yuga, in which we find a little bit of corruption sets in. Then we come to Dwapara Yuga, further corruption sets in. And finally, when we come to Kali Yuga, we find it is the age of darkness. From the age of light, brilliance, we land up into an age of darkness, only to once again move towards the age of light. This is the cyclic process in which the human history goes up and down. And Swami Vivekananda says that from the time Swami Sri Ramakrishna was born, this journey of the human society from a state of darkness to the state of life has already begun. It may take thousands and perhaps millions of years before we reach that state of perfection where every man and woman would be a rishi. Vivekananda beautifully states one point there. I would just read out that portion. It's extremely relevant to this session here. He says, "There were times in olden days when rishis were many in every society. The time is to come when rishis will walk through every street in every city in the world. Schools and colleges should be training grounds for rishis. The whole universe must become rishis. And until a man becomes a rishi, religion is a mockery and a byword to him. We have to work now so that everyone will become a rishi. This is the great work before us." I have used the word rishi here, but actually in the text it is prophet. Swami uses the word prophet, but actually what he means is the state of rishihood. So Vivekananda wants to say that once again, we have to take the society to the attainment of that great state of rishihood. The same thing he echoed in England in 1896, where he states a beautiful thing. He says, "You see, in America, I have just started my work. I have just raised one or two waves. We have to raise the tidal wave. The society has to be turned upside down, and the world has to be given a new civilization." These are all interconnected ideas. Vivekananda himself was a rishi who could see far ahead of his times, perhaps thousands of years ahead of his time, and he was seeing, perhaps with his clear vision, that there is going to come a time when the civilization is going to be strongly based on spiritual principles, where every man and every woman would be rishis. So this is the great picture that we get, a connection between what Sri Ramakrishna actually we find in his life is, Sri Ramakrishna once again captures that ambience of the Vedic age. He captures that spirit of the Vedic scientific age and brings it back to our own times. And he is the model, the prototype of the ideal of Rishihood before us. In fact, it's very interesting. The man who was the very, I should say, the epitome of renunciation, an epitome of absolute purity, he enters into a marital relationship. Why? What was the need for him to get married? To keep before us the ideal of Rishihood. Rishihood is not an ideal meant for monks at all. The society is comprised of householders. 99% of the human society is comprised of men and women married in marital relationships. Unless they become spiritual, unless they have this view of becoming rishis, the society is going to remain in darkness. It is to set an example for them. Sri Ramakrishna marries and sets before the world the ideal of rishihood in and through the family setting and family life. So I just conclude my talk by stating one basic principle, that this ideal of rishihood, the way to attainment to that is grihastha based on adhyatma. Grihastha, the life of the married man and the married woman, based on the spiritual principle, is a roadway to the attainment of rishihood. This is the core of so-called Vedic Sanatana Dharma. This is the core of the so-called the Hindu thought, which is so scientific. And because it is scientific, it is universal. Thank you so much.